Welcome to the Dante or Die podcast.
Hello.
Hello. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Terry. And I'm really looking forward to this episode because you're going to hear from some people that you might not always hear from on a traditional theatre podcast.
When real sites are a key part of the project, local business managers are sometimes the first person you contact.
Yeah, and it can be quite tricky to convince them sometimes, right?
Sometimes it could be tricky. And somebody who knows really well how to do that is John Luther.
One of our favourite people in theatre.
Hi, John.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Really well, thank you. Yeah.
It's so great to have you with us.
Yeah, it's lovely to be here.
So, what do you do, John?
So I'm the artistic director of a little art centre in Reading called South Street Art Centre.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been there for about 19 years now, so quite a while.
Wow, 20th anniversary next year. You're going to have a party.
Yeah, maybe.
And about a decade ago, you started Sightlines.
Yeah, so I'd been seeing quite a bit of work that was in non-theatrical spaces, non-theatre spaces, and wanted to bring them to Reading. So I brought a couple of pieces, one of which had quite a big impact on our audiences, by Laura Mugridge. It was set in a camper van for 5 people at a time, won a Fringe First at Edinburgh. So I brought that, which was really easy to bring because she drove her camper van to South Street, parked outside and did that show. But I realised that that audiences had a kind of a heightened experience doing something different out of their comfort zone and really engaged with the work really interestingly. And so I started thinking about how we might bring more of that work, of course, but also maybe kind of look to do some work ourselves in unusual spaces around Reading. And around that time, I think that's when I met you, really.
Exactly around that time.
We were just developing I Do, weren't we?
Yeah. We were developing I Do, which was a show that took place in 6 hotel rooms, and we asked you to find a hotel for us in Reading.
That's right.
We needed 6 hotel rooms on the same floor with 1 corridor. How did you do it? How did you convince the Malmaison to say yes?
Well, this was quite an interesting moment in my career. So yeah, I just thought this sounds amazing, first of all. So that was a big tick. And then I suddenly realised I didn't really have anybody else to do this. I had to go and do it myself. So I basically kind of made a list of hotels in the town centre that were easily accessible from South Street and thought for audiences, and started going around them and chatting to them. Now, the first couple I went into, this looked at me like I was stark raving bonkers and were just not interested whatsoever. And then a new hotel had opened in a lovely old space near the station, run by Malmaison. And before I went in, I thought I'd do a bit of research about Malmaison. And their tagline is "Dare to be different." So I went in thinking I might call their bluff on this one. So I went in, asked if I could meet the manager. Luckily, he was available. And I chatted to him and just said, look, you say dare to be different. I've got something different to pitch to you. And you'd given me a really good information about it. I supplied that information, chatted to them, and they just went, yeah, let's do it. Literally on the spot, just said, let's do this. So they gave us 6 free rooms for the weekend.
And why do you think? What was in it for them?
Well, it's an interesting thing. Reading is a funny old town because it's got a lot of head offices, and almost all the hotel rooms in Reading sell out during the week, but not at weekends. So I think we were a little bit lucky. He did say to me, if we were in Oxford, where it's the exact opposite, we'd have probably struggled for them to give us that. So they were a little bit lucky with that kind of specific thing. But it also just opened in Reading, and they were quite interested in just kind of getting the local community engaged with the venues as well. I mean, hotels, usually it's people out of town booking to come into them, but of course people visit relatives, visit friends in the town and maybe book. So it is worth getting the local town and the local community on side. So I think they were very keen on that as a new venue in Reading. And as I say, it wasn't quite as expensive for them to give us 6 rooms because I think at that point they weren't necessarily at full capacity at weekends. So a little bit of luck.
I think what you're saying, but is really the key to it, because understanding every partner is different. And our partner hotel in London said something completely different. They said, well, the PR that we would get from we had reviews in lots of newspapers, the Metro and the Evening Standard. And they said, well, we would pay a lot more to have this PR than we would earn from 6 rooms. So it's always finding what's in it for that specific partner, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think they definitely used their internal Malmaison magazine. It was featured in that. So they did want to do a bit of internal PR as well, I think. But yeah, I think it just calling their bluff on their tagline. Was
Well
was
done.
the hit, yeah.
The other thing that we did at Hilton, the first time we did it, was that we gave them a show just for them, and they invited loads of businesses, local businesses, in for the evening, and they did like special cocktails and stuff, and they did a whole evening. It was just all people from the local businesses that came to see the show, which was really interesting. It was a very different audience that we usually had, but they found a way to use it as a benefit for them.
Oh, yeah, wait a minute. Hang on.
Oh, hello, Mo. You look great.
Thank you.
I saw your mother in the corridor. She told me which room you're in.
Oh, how was that?
Hmm?
Seeing my mum.
Yeah, no, fine. You're on time, mate. Water under the bridge.
So, you're here?
Of course I'm here. It's my daughter's wedding. She asked me to be here. I'm here. Simple. Hope we can have a pleasant day.
Yes, so do I.
It's not about us. It's about Georgie and Tundra.
Tunde.
What's he like then?
Yeah, he's very nice.
And it's been, what, 6?
7 months.
I've had stuff in the fridge longer than that.
You know, David, I haven't really got time for this. What do you want?
Well, no jokes about cobwebs. I want to make a contribution. Oh, that's very funny, Maureen. I'm here. It's the right thing. She's my daughter. I don't want any arguments.
I'm not arguing.
Good.
We can talk about it later, though.
So even though it was really tough, it was a really tough challenge to get the hotel to say yes, but he did it. And then it ended up being an absolutely brilliant partnership. And then he managed to get a self-storage unit and a leisure centre and cafes, and he's done more and more Sightlines productions in loads of different locations in Reading. So we wanted to hear a little bit about how staging these productions outside of the theatre venue impacted his community.
From all the 10 years that you've made shows in Sightlines in unusual spaces, do you have like a really memorable moment to share?
Memorable moment.
Or 3?
Oh, I've got
Or
so
10?
Got so many. I mean, I do still has a very special place in my heart because it was kind of the first large scale one we did. And I know the first Sightlines festival that I did, because it started as a festival before it became kind of a strand in our programme. I do as a kind of a preview, didn't we? And then we brought it back for the second festival in its full-fledged version. So it's kind of in my first 2 Sightlines festivals, I do was there. So it's kind of really important. And audiences loved it. They still talk to me about it now. So it had a kind of an indelible mark on our kind of cultural landscape in Reading. So I think that really is important. Obviously, Jackson's Corner, the show we made about the store in Reading, it's really important because it's the first one we made ourselves with our own resident artists made in Reading. So that was really important. And the football club one as well, because we've done it 3 times now and it has this incredible ability to bring in people that would never go to the theatre. So supporters of Reading Football Club come and love it. And they don't really realise they're watching contemporary performance. They're just watching a show about their beloved club and they love it. So those 3 probably are the ones that have the biggest impact. But Take On Me as well. How could I not say Take On Me? I mean, it was such a big project and had such a big impact to all of your shows, really.
I like that you say that people don't realise they're watching contemporary theatre. I think that's a really great ambition. It's like theatre by stealth, or you're kind of sidelining your way into communities that wouldn't often do it, and that's really joyous.
Yeah.
With Take On Me, with having like full frontal nudity in the changing rooms, and yet it's this kind of joyous, quite fun show.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can kind of push people and you can provoke people and you can get people thinking about things they might not always think about by this kind of work. What are the different reactions that you see with because you know your local audience, you're often there at the door.
Yeah.
How do you feel like people respond to these kinds of productions?
I'm always there at the door, I think is the...
Always.
Always
Sorry.
there at the door.
Yeah, I think, as I alluded to earlier, there is taking audiences into a place they wouldn't expect to see a piece of work, see a piece of theatre, art, whatever it is, but in this case theatre, just raises the the stakes, I suppose. And I hate, you never want something to be a gimmick because that's awful. But if there's a really solid, strong reason to go outside your theatre building and do something, it can really excite audiences and heighten the experience and just leave indelible kind of memories for people. I mean, what I really like the idea that somebody will use Reading Leisure Centre for the rest of their lives or for the next 10, 15, 20 years, whatever. And almost every time they walk through the door, just smile because they saw a show in there. If they walk past Malmaison Hotel, they remember the show. And I think that absolutely happens. There are people wandering around Reading who go past sites where we've staged work and they go, I remember that show. So it does have a strong response from audiences. And we do have a number of our audience who only come to Sightlines shows, which is quite interesting. But in the general thing, we've had people who've engaged with us first with Sightlines and then moved over into coming to the studio program as well. We've had people from the studio program definitely come through to Sightlines and become fans of both. So it's a very strong part of our audience development plan as well.
After I Do, we thought we had it nailed in terms of like approaching partners, and we thought it was going to be really easy to get one for our next project.
But it really wasn't. We had to take a completely different approach to convince lock and store self-storage units to come on board for our production.
So now we get to hear a little bit about it from the other side when we approach somebody, what's going through their mind. So I got to talk to Neil Newman from Lock and Store. He's sitting in their head office in Farnborough.
Hi, Terry.
Neil, can you tell me a little bit about what you do? Because you don't work in theatre, do you?
No, sadly I don't. I have a GCSE in drama. That's about as good as it gets. So I'm managing director for Lock and Store. We're one of the biggest and fastest growing self-storage companies in the UK. We've got about 40 stores open today, and we're growing all the time. So.
And we met, it was either 2015 or 2016, and I came into that head office where you are now and had a bit of a weird request for you, right?
You did, yeah. We get a lot of requests from kind of local charities and things, as most businesses do, and we try to support where we can. But yours was very different, so it took a bit of head scratching and a bit of thought to work out how we're gonna get this to work. But it did, and we're really glad we could help.
So I asked you if we could produce our show Handle with Care, and we ended up working with you across 3 of your stores, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you did it in Reading in Berkshire, then we went to the South Coast in Poole, and then up to Harlow in Essex. So with three regional.
So what did you think of the idea when we said, okay, we want to take over and walk through the whole place? What was going through your mind? I
was really intrigued. I guess like most of the UK, I go to theatre every so often. I'm not a theatre regular, I guess. So maybe once every 6 months, something like that. But normally to see one of the bigger shows. And this was something entirely different and really interesting. So we, on a personal level, it was something great to work with. At a business level, clearly it was a great opportunity to support a local or several local theatres and get some local exposure, both in terms of kind of PR and press, but also probably more importantly just getting some people into our stores so they can see what we do. So it was a great opportunity for us.
So you came to see the show in Reading. What do you remember about it?
I told my wife we're going to go out and go to the theatre, and she was all excited. And then I told her it was in one of my storage centres, and she was at first a little bit. I thought I was going to get to dress up and do all these things. So, but as I remember, it was a story about two individuals and how they went through their life collecting items and storing items at different key moments in their life, and how possessions provoked memories and discussion and dare I say sometimes arguments over where people things that have happened previously, how it allows you to associate and connect with possessions in that way.
I got to play a Lock and Store manager.
You did.
So I had the whole the uniform.
I remember. Yeah. So one day that might come in useful.
Absolutely. And what was it? Do you happen to remember anything about the managers who were in the stores with us? What were they having to deal with us?
Quite a lot of logistical matters, I guess, around how you would how you set up for the various evenings, because each of the productions was held out of hours, so we had stores open all through the day, and then you had a really short window to set up, and we had to deal with, I guess, lots of practical issues around customers coming in 5 minutes before we close to get into the unit that's right by where you've just set up, and all of those kind of things. But our managers are used to that. They're used to dealing with problems. That's what they're there for, and they're great at doing that. So
I remember there was one, I think it was in Reading actually, where we wanted to turn off all the lights on one of the floors, and the manager there was just finding it really complex to figure out how to do it, because you never turn off those kinds of lights.
Sure.
And it was really hard to figure out how to do it, and working with him. And he was like, well, why do you have to do it? And it was quite a tricky conversation.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think also, but on the flip side, I think it gave our managers some exposure to learning a bit more about their buildings, quite frankly, because we don't, you're absolutely right. We run a pretty simple operation, and once our stores are set up, they don't have to touch anything like that generally, and it's all a bit right. What do I do now? Where not just, probably not quite as bad as where's the fuse board, but I do remember we ended up bringing in our in-house electrician to one of the productions to help you do that and help you get ready for the evening.
And it's so incredible that a business like you can take that leap and help us out so much, because it adds so much more to your day, and it makes life harder for all of your team. I'm just thinking, this podcast is we're talking to theatre students, and we're talking to early career theatre makers who might want to make site-specific shows. If people wanted to come to you again, what would you recommend they say? What's the best way to approach someone like you?
I think within with any business, we want to be involved in the local community, but we get approached a lot. So I think you've got to come to us with something different, and something that's perhaps going to get us a little bit of local PR. And clearly, the thing that you were able to give us is delivering an audience into our store. And one of the challenges for our business certainly is to get people to see and understand self-storage. Now, clearly, Handle with Care was great, because it got to the heart of why do people use self-storage. They use it at key moments in their life, and when there's change, and the whole story took you through pretty much all of the key reasons as to why people may use self-storage as a domestic user. So that was great. So that gave us a real opportunity to sort of showcase our business in an indirect way, without being it wasn't just a brash advertising campaign. So but just come and talk to us is the answer, and we'll if we can help, we will. If we can't, we'll tell you pretty quickly if we can't, because perhaps why, so you can learn from that. So.
I guess that's one of the great things about the way you approached it, was I think you saw it as a partnership, so we worked together. It didn't feel like we were asking you a favor, or you were using us as a PR tool.
I think that's right. Because businesses don't win by using charities and not-for-profit organisations for PR, because it just doesn't work. If you just we talk a lot about greenwashing, but the same applies for charity washing, I guess, from businesses. But what we want to do is we want to make sure people know who we are and where we are, so when they need us, they know who to call, and the way to do that is to support projects like yourselves.
Well, thank you so much for saying yes all those years ago, and saying yes again to chatting with us today. It's really great to have your insight.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Neil.
Thanks so much. Bye now.
When we were creating Take On Me in 2016, we reached out to a variety of local groups: amateur dramatic groups, community choirs, colleges, people who just came to an aerobics class in a leisure centre, to invite them to take part in our 80s inspired show as our guest cast.
One of those people who joined us was Sophie Gunn.
What do you remember about that process when you came in at 17 into the Take On Me environment?
I remember feeling like, right, I am a serious actor. I really remember the feeling of like, this is my, moment. I need to treat this as an audition, and I remember almost taking myself a bit too seriously, I think. But then it was so much fun being in the room with the workshop audition. I think we did something that then became the aerobics scene. I think we did some sort of aerobics or something from my memory. And yeah, it was just such a friendly, nice environment to be in.
What did you do in the project?
So I had loads of different roles. I was a Ghostbuster. I was a Patrick falling into the pool. I think I might have done an aerobics scene at one point. So loads of different roles within the guest cast.
Meeting and collaborating with Sophie profoundly changed our work.
It took us to new audiences and it really challenged us.
My parents are both deaf, and in order to come and see the show, a British Sign Language interpreter needed to be booked. And I think back when I was growing up, there was hardly any performances that had interpreters pre-booked. I remember doing shows at school and having to, it was kind of like, well, who's going to pay for the interpreter, because the school doesn't often have the budget. It's expensive to book an interpreter, so it's quite a difficult one. So never really went to go and see shows a lot with my parents. And I really wanted them to come and see the show. I thought it was a really different, unique show. I knew my mum would love it because it's something really visual as well. There was not just about the words and the music that was in it. It was a lot about the colours, the costumes, everything. And so yeah, I really wanted them to come and see it. So I asked if we could book a sign language interpreter. And I don't know, I don't remember really having a conversation with you and Terry about what was your initial kind of thoughts or feelings when you first worked with, was it, I think her name was Jenny, the interpreter we booked?
Yeah, it was. And I think it was such an, like it was a real moment of change for us, because we just thought, oh wow, Sophie's mum can't see it. And I remember we brought Jenny in on a Friday morning and we spent the day working with her on how we could integrate her into this very complicated site-specific show. And you were very much part of that conversation, trying to explaining like the basics to us. Where would the audience look? Where would you place her? How would we light her? All these conversations we sort of did in a really speedy way. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Any audience member can stand anywhere, but I know that my parents are going to have to be standing there. I suppose what I would have liked them to experience, the same experience as any other audience member, which is I come in, I place myself wherever I want to stand or sit or be in the room and see the show. And then obviously having a BSL interpreter who's going to obviously be in a specific place, they have to be able to see them. So it's kind of thinking, how do we get the balance as well? Which is something I definitely learned throughout doing the second tour of Take On Me as well.
It was a larger tour. We went to 6 different places around the country, and you were one of the performers in the show. But you also had another role as an Access Associate.
Reaching out to deaf audiences in the local areas that we were touring to, trying to encourage them to come and see the show. It was definitely a challenge because firstly, we were travelling to areas that I'd never been to, I wasn't familiar with. So I made some videos of me explaining the show and sent them out to local deaf clubs or deaf community Facebook pages that were in those specific areas. And it's me, my face, who I've never met these people before. And I'm saying, come and see the show. And so it's like I didn't know how likely we were to get people to come and see the show. All I knew is I really felt passionate about, the work we'd put into it to make site-specific theatre accessible, or as accessible as it could be.
Sophie taught us so much about the language of British Sign Language, or BSL.
Because BSL is its own language and it's got its own grammar and structure and syntax, and so it's my first language, so I have an idea of how I would have translated things. But for me to translate something and then another, let's say a deaf person or another qualified interpreter, if they were going to translate exactly the same song, we could all translate it completely differently. Because just as an example, me saying, oh, my name is Sophie, in BSL grammatical order is name me Sophie. That's the order of it. That kind of gives you the basic idea. It's a lot. I'm not doing it justice in terms of how complex it is. But but trying to think of ways to translate songs and things, and also think about what fits in with the show, like how does it all look, how does it all feel. We're in different rooms in each leisure centre we go into. There's a completely different space and a completely new place we're in, and trying to figure out, okay, where am I going to stand, but then being able to be seen and also looking like part of the cast, rather than just, oh, there's someone signing in the corner, or there's someone standing in the side of the room signing. I wanted it to be more part of the show, and I think that's exactly what you guys wanted as well.
Yeah, and I think we definitely achieved it.
I think I also appreciated a lot of comments and feedback from people saying that, you know, why have I never thought of that before? Or, oh, you know, I think it always inspires a lot of people to say they want to learn sign language. And realistically, it doesn't happen a lot of the time. A lot of people, they see a show or they see someone signing and they think, oh, I'm going to learn sign language. And they normally don't go on to commit to that, which is a shame, but that's just the way life is, I think. But I think what it does do is plant a seed in people's heads of, okay, we should think about doing that. We should think about, whether it's making their shows completely integrated or having an interpreter at every single show, or having, just booking an interpreter for some of their shows. It plants a seed and starts something. And I think that's really important.
And it's been so important to us that we look at the accessibility needs for each performance we do.
So then, when we were developing User Not Found, we asked Sophie to join the professional team.
User Not Found was different because we used captions rather than integrated sign language or having an interpreter. It's to do with them both being different languages. With things like funding and budgets and stuff, it's always going to be impossible to make a show accessible for everyone in every way at every performance at the moment. And so, yeah, we had a focus group, and because the show was on phones, so much of the show was on the phone as well as being in the room. And if they're looking at an actor and then an interpreter and then their phone, so we went with captions for that. And it's funny, actually, because recently, the most recent series of Stranger Things, their captions for the sound effects are really, really detailed. And I saw people talking about it online. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting, because that's kind of an idea that we were kind of talking about so long ago in User Not Found. And I think I prefer it. I think it's nicer to have that sort of detail in. I think it's just nicer to do it justice in the captions. Just by saying high pitch and low pitch, for some people that will mean something, but for some people that haven't heard a high pitch or low pitch, it might not mean something. I remember talking about, like, explaining some of the instruments, like, I think it was like a violin, and to me it sounded like a scratchy violin, and it was high pitched, but then using all of those words to try and convey something, to try and convey what was going on, and as well as what you can see in the room, as well as what you can see on your phone, that's what I wanted the captions to kind of include. I think for me, the biggest learnings haven't come from doing the projects themselves. They've come from watching how theatre altogether is kind of evolving to become hopefully more accessible. Some companies are doing it and starting to do it, and you can see it's evolving. Using that knowledge, I think, is the learning that I would put back into those projects if they were ever to happen again, or if I were to go back and do them again. Because at the time it was just me, and I was trying to think of all these things and trying to understand how we could do this. And I think we can involve way more people than just one person. You can have a BSL consultant come and work on the project to make sure that the translations fit and look good and make sense. Involving deaf actors and involving other creatives that understand BSL, to have it as more of a collaborative process for everyone. I also think, I was, every time a show finished, I was like, oh my God, I did do it. And I'm really proud of myself. And I did well. I feel like I did well. I feel like I did the best job I could have done. Sometimes I look back and I'm like, I can't even believe I did that. I don't know how I did that. Yeah.
Listening to that clip again, it's really clear that working with Sophie has massively helped us grow as a company.
She genuinely shaped what we do, and we're so grateful to her and her family.
So Daphne, you spoke to Chrissy Foster, one of our amazing community partners down in Poole, who she runs a choir called Bittersweet Harmony. She was quite busy when you caught up with her, wasn't she?
I'm in the car in Littlemore in Weymouth. I'm loading up my stuff for a new room for my tattoo studio.
Chrissy took us back to 2016 when we asked her if Bittersweet Harmony would like to take part in Take On Me.
I thought, yes, brilliant. Something weird, something different, right up my street. And when I have to explain to the guys what we're doing, I don't give them any choice, especially with something as fantastic as this. So we learned 2 songs at the end. We all dressed up swimming costumes and robes, and we all wore these silly yellow caps, which we found hilarious, obviously. And then we jumped into the swimming pool for the finale, singing our songs. As we were jumped in, and we were doing all the sign language as in the swimming pool as well. We did a bit of sign language for both of the songs. People came back to me and said they walked out because it was frontal nudity. Yeah, they said they were nude like this. And I was like, oh, that sounds exciting. Okay, that's different. There's lots of lovely memories. I remember we were waiting in the sports hall, and there's this Jamaican lady called Dorette, who's 70. She found a ball and started kicking it about. So we started playing football while we were waiting to go to our places, So behind the scenes, it was just so positive. We loved the total inclusion of the people with extra needs community, the deaf community. They make memories for life. It fills your heart with joy. And you just never know what you're going to experience. And if you say no, you're going to stay the same. Your choir will stay the same. It won't grow. It won't bond. Do you know what I mean? We are such a tight community now because we've had these experiences. Honestly, we'll never forget it for the rest of our lives. It was just amazing. Honestly, we still talk about it now.
So the people we get to work with from the non-theatre world on our projects, they massively impact the stories we tell and the shows for the better.
Yeah, it means we can't be lazy and expect people to know what we're talking about. And I think it really pushes us out of our comfort zone.
Yeah, for sure. It's why we love it, isn't it?
Thanks for listening. Huge thank you to John Luther,
To Neil Newman,
Sophie Gunn.
Chrissy Foster. Oh, actually, Daphne, so if Chrissy was going to do a tattoo on you,
I don't
what
want
would
a
it
tattoo.
be? Oh, go on. If you had to have one,
I
I'm
don't.
putting a gun to your head.
There's
You have to have a
nothing.
tattoo, and Chrissy's putting it on your
I
body.
can't decide
What is
on
it?
anything I would like to just paint on my skin forever. This is just not me. But which tattoo would you go for?
A picture of Kylie.
That is what I would have expected you to say.
Fun to it.
We have the fun. Let's just do one without the fun in case you can't cut it. Thanks for listening. Huge thank you to John Luther,
Neil Newman,
Sophie Gunn,
and Chrissy Foster.
As ever, if you want to know more about our work, do head to our website, danteordie.com.
And if you've got any questions or thoughts about what we've been chatting about, then get in touch on our socials at Dante or Die, #DOD podcast.
You're so good at the hashtag. A big thank you to our producers, Marie Horner and Erica McCoy.
And to Yaniv Friedel for his brilliant music. And our wonderful Dante team, Caitlin, Lucy, Sophie and Catherine for all their hard work.
The podcast was recorded at Phoenix Court and Soho Sonic Studios.
And it's been funded by Arts Council England.